Call to order the Planning Commission for the City of Columbus, 6 p.m. Let's pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, and that's looking for approval of our meeting agenda for tonight and the approval of our Joint Planning Commission City Council meeting minutes. We do those as one.
This is Susan. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Kim. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll take a vote.
Kim, aye.
Mike, aye. Andy, aye.
Bob and I. Okay. Next, public open forum. There doesn't seem to be anybody here. If there is somebody hiding and I don't see you, you can come forward. Anybody online, Eleanor? No. We have nobody online, so we'll just move right on to the discussion of the Verizon small cell installation IUP and text amendment for 15201 Zurich Street Northeast. If I could have you from Verizon, come on, step up forward here for me, please.
Okay, yes.
That's before we have reviewed your application, and just for the record, could you give us just a brief description of what you're looking for today?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, what we're proposing is a small cell deployment. What we're looking at is to replace initially one light pole there in the parking lot of Running Aces with one that's just a little more structurally suitable to handle some small cellular antennas on that pole. We plan to have a follow-up pole replacement in that same exact parking lot next spring as well. And really this is just driven by the network demand and coverage from the amount of crowds that Running Aces brings in every year, and just the events that they hold in their parking lot with their the Fall Fest they just recently had, things of that nature. So it's just, it's important to be able to have that coverage when you have that high density of individuals, to be able to ensure, both function and use from, being able to make phone calls and texts and that sort of thing, but also from an emergency response perspective to make sure the network is capable of handling that traffic if, God forbid, there's ever the need for those emergency calls to go through.
Sure. Thank you. And for the record, did you receive a copy of the staff report developed by Eleanor Hahn, dated October 15th? This report has findings number 1 through 12 on pages 9 through 10 and conditionings number 1 through 11.
Yes.
And you received that, and do you have any questions or comments at this time about that?
I do not.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to open to the commissioners. If you have any questions, comments?
I have nothing.
I have nothing. I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Well, it looks like this was pretty easy.
If I may, Chair.
I have one question, and it really doesn't pertain, I don't know how it pertains, but what about like somebody like T-Mobile or something like that? Does this take pressure off of everybody or just off of you guys?
It does, and it's just off of Verizon. So the antennas are specifically Verizon network antennas, so it's only going to offload for Verizon's network. I know other carriers do similar deployments. I don't know if they have plans in the future for this particular parcel, but in this scenario with this type of deployment, it's very unique and specific just to Verizon Wireless.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, sir.
If I may, Chair, I did want to address, just for the record, that there was one additional change in the report since the public hearing 2 weeks ago, and that was to ensure Running Aces and Verizon did mention that they were going to possibly have a second antenna installed on the property next year, depending on, but the exact location of that antenna is not quite determined yet, or the timeline, so I wanted to include a provision in this permit to cover them on that one, so they would not have to come back here next year and do the entire process over again for the same project.
That's good.
And so I guess another question for you, is there a plan to do a third one in the future?
There's not at this
Okay.
time, not a third one, just a second one. It'd be identical in design, the same
Perfect.
type of a pole replacement. We just don't know exactly which pole in the parking lot we're going to replace, just due to there's some redevelopment plans that may be coming down the pipeline with running ACEs that would affect exactly where we'd want to place that to make sure it optimizes the current need, and then to future-proof it to limit the number of total small cells we have on site. So the plans right now in the foreseeable future is just the one we have proposed now for this fall, and then one additional one that we would be installing next spring.
Okay. And so the language in this IUP does permit city staff to approve that second one, the location and
Yes.
installation of that second one administratively, as long as it's consistent with what is being approved here tonight. So they
Yes.
don't have to come back to more meetings next year.
Yes, I like that.
But I did want to address that for the record.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? So we're looking for a motion to approve or deny the Verizon small cell installation IUP and text amendment to the city council with changes discussed.
This is Susan. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Verizon small cell installation IUP and text amendment to the city council with the changes that were discussed.
This is Kim. I'll second the motion.
We'll take a vote.
Kim, I.
Susan, I.
Mike, aye.
Andy, I.
Rob and I. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Perfect. I appreciate
You
your
are all set.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We are going to discuss fence regulations again, because I know we all loved it so much the last time.
Back for more.
All right.
Yep.
Apparently there was some drinking going on before the meeting today.
Okay, so, I trust everybody has read and seen what the regulation changes are or proposed to be. Does anybody have any questions or commentary on those changes?
I actually did have a question. I went into our code, and it's been a long day, so maybe I couldn't find it. But I did see that we do there's a zoning like permit. Is that also then apply to the fences?
So typically, we have a general zoning permit written up in our code, but it isn't assigned specific things. So we always have the option to include fencing into a zoning permit, but we have not been doing that as a part of our provisions. So that is actually something that can be brought up if the proposed ordinance, as it's in front of you now, would be acceptable if we don't want to pursue doing any sort of permitting for fences, as we have been doing. A lot of our residents aren't going to come forward and start getting permits
Right.
for putting up a fence in their backyard. It's not going to be something that everyone does. We can definitely encourage it and start requiring it for fences if we want to have stricter regulations. So this is regulations that are understandable to be done without a permit.
Got
If we
it.
want to have them stricter, you're going to have to start having those zoning permits.
Got it. Yeah, because I didn't see it specific, so I kind of thought maybe, and yeah, I can imagine that the majority are not going to call or to see if they need a permit or come in to get a permit. So that was kind of my question. And I guess if somebody does call and they say, hey, do I need a permit? Is that answer then typically yes? And then you would do the zoning permit at that time, or do you just say it's not required?
We typically have them do up a simple site plan sort of zoning permit. It's not included in it's not currently implemented fully, if that makes sense.
It does. Yep.
Is that one done just to make sure they meet setback requirements?
Because we have no regulations on fences, there's not really much zoning permitting to do.
Makes sense.
Requiring a zoning permit for what we currently have on the books is a little bit like, are you building a fence on your property?
great.
That would be great, yeah. That's the only thing we'd be checking for.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, the one thing I saw in here that I was a little confused by, and that was, what the heck was I reading? I don't have my notes, darn. Never mind.
I guess to go over some of the changes that we discussed, specifically, we talked about setbacks from, in the Coon Lake Overlay District. I think a common and easy way to state that in code is riparian lots, which are any lots that have direct access to a river or a lake or some sort of body of water, that those setbacks must be met for fences so that the fences can't go straight down to the water line and it can't restrict viewing of the lake shore for other residents. And that would apply to any lakefront property, but that is what is commonly used for that kind of restriction. So that was added, specifically stating that fences cannot restrict drainage. If there is drainage issues on a particular property, you typically would have them raise the fence up a few inches off the ground to allow flow of water underneath. Allowing an exception for public parks, schools, or other educational facilities to have taller fences for, say, our new tennis court or any sort of playground equipment can have taller fences. That's a pretty common situation. And then masonry stone or concrete walls, which are technically fall under our fence category, having tighter height restrictions and setback restrictions. Those are not especially common, but we do technically allow them and should have some more restrictions on them. So that's what you are seeing in these. We also talked about materials to be used last time and being a little bit more specific on that.
Yep.
Adding restrictions that the fences cannot be made of corrugated metal, sheet plastic, plywood, pallets, or makeshift fencing would not be allowed. Allowing them to fall into disrepair to the point of being a nuisance to neighbors would not be allowed. Having that clearly spelled out and having a piece of code to go back to if there is issues with that is very helpful for enforcement reasons. But other than that, it is pretty standard to what we currently do.
Do we require people to give some sort of a plan of their fence to us, to the city?
Design standard wise,
Yes, well, not necessarily design standard, but how are we going to make sure that people, we have nothing in here that says, gee, you can't build on somebody else's land, or, we're basically saying, if you think this is where the property line is, this is where you can build your fence.
I mean,
Which isn't a really great idea.
all right. So that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up is if we wanted to institute those zoning permits, we can definitely add that, but that's the only way that we're going to be able to require them to submit a plan or submit some sort of evidence of what they're building the materials out of. Currently, we have this, the code set up essentially as guidance for anybody who's going to build a fence and something for us to point back on if there are issues. That the city can step in and be like, nope, these are the rules. You did not follow the rules, and we can do something after the fact. If we want to require permits and require them to submit that information, we can. And that's a policy decision that is really up to you guys. You can be as reactive or proactive as you want in this situation.
One other thing that I'd like to recommend too is especially where fences are made out of materials that are more solid, like wooden slat fences, that there be a minimum height they're set off the ground. Columbus is so flat, has drainage issues anyway. A chain link fence, you probably wouldn't want to do it for a couple of reasons. Number one, you've got some chances of drainage anyway, but you could have a small animal that could get trapped under there. But if you have a wooden fence, maybe there should be a standard so that it doesn't block drainage and back water up in somebody else's yard.
I've never had a fence, so I don't even know what a reasonable distance underneath would be.
Normally, it's 4 inches.
Okay, that's not bad.
And eventually, over time, those will kind of fill in a little bit more too, so that does give you an option, but those can be obstructions to drainage. And what Robin was saying too, is I've seen places where they ask, you don't have to get a permit, but you're requested to submit a site plan so staff can look at it to make sure that it's on your property lines, if there's a certified survey available, so that you're not, so if it looks like you're building it on somebody else or in a drainage easement, that you can be advised of it, so you may not have to come back and take it out later.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's basically what I was thinking of,
Okay.
is I would like people to turn in a little something, here, a piece of paper, shows the outline, shows where I'm putting it. That's all I'm thinking of. I don't want some big ordinance or anything like that.
No,
I don't
I
want
understand.
that. I just want us to be able to see something before they start putting it in.
And I completely understand that. That is typically my process. If somebody comes in and says, I would like to build a fence, I walk them through what their property looks like and what they can do and what they can't do, and we advise. I tell them that we advise you to set it back 2 feet from your property line and to leave a gap underneath, but we don't have anything written in ordinance regarding that.
I like that that was added in, especially because then you can get into that dispute. And I think when you're going 2, 3 feet back, even if their site plan is the GIS printed out, I mean, that GIS is very, very close. So if it's, within 2, 3 feet, that's probably going to be covered.
Yeah.
And I think having that, and I think having something then like in their property file or something that kind of shows that what they submitted, and if they haven't then executed that, it becomes an enforcement issue, but then also the city isn't held liable for quote-unquote approving something that they already have, and that keeps the city out of any potential liability should the property neighbors, they get into some civil dispute, that's your guys' issue, it's your property. The city has looked at it, and at the time, it was approved via what we had in ordinances, so I think having a site plan and maybe like an approved stamp or something, I don't know. But taking a look at it for sure, I think is a
Okay.
great idea.
Yep.
Because that's another thing that I wanted to discuss. So if we are going to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a lot of, many of our properties do not have certified surveys on file and would require them to go out and get a new one for the fences if they want to get that close to the property line, which they should do. Do we want to have a formal system put in place in this ordinance and setbacks to enforce to, and require them to submit those things prior to putting in a fence?
I personally think so. I don't know if
Okay.
I would go as far as a survey, because a survey is going to be pretty expensive for a fence.
Yeah.
If I was a homeowner, I'd be like, well, then I don't want the fence. Well, I guess maybe, I still would want the fence if I wanted it, but I think that would really, even requiring a survey sometimes to build something, because it's less than the amount of acreage, you kind of get a lot of pushback. So I think the fence would maybe create a lot of pushback. But I think a site plan, and I think having something written into the ordinance that, this is what you need to do. I think just those simple steps. If they want to do it, they should be able to just submit what they're thinking and, have staff take a look at it and advise.
Okay.
Sometimes a survey can actually cost more than the fence.
It sure
And
can.
I think,
Yeah, that's why I don't want to require a survey.
I think if you just have a statement that's signed by the person that's coming in, say, I have verified that the location of this
Absolutely.
fence is solely contained on my property.
Absolutely.
And then that takes the pressure off us or the liability
idea.
off us.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to go, it's all on them to make sure it's there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And they can then quabble amongst themselves should that ever occur and
Well,
not
yeah,
come into the office and want to talk to.
Because then if
the
two
office.
neighbors if you certify that you put it on your property and then I take the time to get a survey to find out now all of a sudden it's not, that's on you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that
Yep.
keeps us as
Yeah,
the
and
city.
then it
out.
becomes a civil matter.
Absolutely.
Then it becomes
Yeah, then
a
it's
civil-
City's out of it, and
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't
I
want to
like
own
that.
that.
I like that a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
I have a question. Is chain link fence considered a approved finish appearance fence?
typically-
I didn't see that on here, so I was just questioning. And if they put up the plastic cloth all the way across it,
According to our current fencing ordinance, it would be allowed. We have allowed
Okay.
it in our industrial corridors and in people's yards
Okay, because I didn't see it as like a finished material.
as a
side.
finished
Yeah.
material. Yes, there is technically, I guess, a finished side to a chain link fence, a little bit. Where because the poles are on your
Yeah,
side.
where it doesn't,
you know?
Yeah.
yeah, where
Yeah.
it goes past and doesn't come over, yeah.
Yeah, I would
I get what
consider
you're
that the
saying.
finished side of chain link fence.
Just saying.
I just didn't know if people would be like, well, where's the chain link fence on this?
On the list.
Yeah.
Of, yes, because currently all we have is the problem
Right.
fences that we've had in the past banned, and leaving it at that. But it can be called out. Okay,
That's a very good point, because those are very common.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
to approved. Okay. So I am hearing definitely go with the simple zoning permit. Do not require a certificate survey, but requiring some sort of statement that it is entirely on their property. Did we want to, currently we have allowing boundary fences. As staff members, we will always recommend not to do boundary fences, but we do technically allow them. Do we want to remove that allowance and say you must set it back 2 feet?
My personal thought is no.
Okay.
I'm in agreement.
I
Because if I
agree-
put
I
up a
agree with
fence,
that
it's
as well.
on,
Yeah.
right on, stay off my lawn, right? And I want to protect that by
Yeah.
putting the fence up on my property.
The reason for the setback is so you can maintain it.
Yeah.
On the other side, but I don't think that's required. It's recommended that you do that, but it's not required.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
That sounds good.
Yes, all right.
Also with the narrow lots by where we live, it's really tough to put
Yeah.
that
Something
restriction.
2 feet away from the property line, it'd be right next to your house.
Yes,
Kind of a thing,
in
right?
some,
Yeah,
in
for
some
sure.
areas, it would be. And so I think I agree with that. Question, I guess, for you as well. Are we allowed to call a public hearing with these changes in the next version? Or do we have to have another discussion?
No,
Prior.
as long as we put them in the next version for the public hearing to be brought up and discussed again, so we've met the
Okay.
requirement.
Perfect. And I'm hearing all of that. What we do need to do to keep moving forward with this ordinance is have a public hearing regarding these changes. I think we all have a pretty solid idea of what we want now after
Absolutely.
talking about it. Thank you all for participating and letting me know what we want to have. So we would be calling a public hearing for the next version with those changes as discussed, and going from there is my recommendation, but.
Okay.
This is Susan. I'll make a motion to call for a public hearing for ordinance 25-03, fence regulations.
This is Kim, I'll second the motion.
We'll take a vote.
Kim, I.
Susan, I.
Mike, aye.
Andy, I.
Rob and I. So there you have that. Anything else on that subject while we're still on it? Nope, good, thank you. Excellent. Planning Commissioners Report, item number 7. I personally don't have anything. How about any of you guys?
I have nothing.
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 All right, thank you very much. Eleanor?
I also have nothing tonight. Thank
All
you.
right, well, thank you, Eleanor. And then,
This is Kim, I make a motion to adjourn.
Susan, second.
take a vote.
Kim, I.
Susan, I.
Mike, aye.
Andy, I.
Rob and I. We are adjourned.